If you're after more sound and a very cool look for your 2019 and newer 5.3 Silverado at home for not a ton of dough, well then the MBRP installer system would be an excellent choice. Now the installer is going to deliver budget-friendly aluminized steel along with the 3-inch mandrel bent tubing and that very cool middle side exit design, all for right around the high $400 price point. Install is going to be pretty straightforward here, guys, but since all of your work is done underneath the truck, figure a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and a couple of hours or so to knock out from start to finish. So the Installer Series is MBRP's answer for truck owners out there who want to crank the volume over stock but would prefer to keep things as budget friendly as possible. Now, speaking of cranking that volume, I would say the MBRP does so, but in a rather modest way. Certainly not the loudest system in the category, but certainly one that will still turn a few heads. So breaking out my scientific Wake the Neighbor scale, I'm going to go solid 3 out of 5 here on my 1 to 5 or 1 to Wake the Neighbor scale with a good amount of bark. Now, more importantly to me though, was the nice deep tone out of the 5.3 Silverado. I really dig it. I'm a fan of the deeper sounding systems. Now inside the truck, things actually remain pretty tame even with this configuration, and that's thanks largely in part to the inclusion of this additional resonator from MBRP, which is a newer addition again to this middle side exit configuration. But let's move away from sound and talk about what else you can expect out of this very budget friendly system. And the big thing to keep in mind here, guys, is it's budget friendly for a reason. Now that's not a dig on build quality, quite the opposite. In fact, MBRP's really solid stuff, but more so because of the aluminized steel that is used with the construction. Now, the aluminized steel is used to keep the cost to an absolute minimum compared to the more expensive stainless steel. Now, the downside to that material is that it is more susceptible to rust or corrosion over the long haul, especially if you see a lot of road salt during the winter months. Now, hey, if you live in a state like Arizona or Florida, this is obviously a non-issue. However, if you live in the Midwest or the Northeast, upstate New York, something like that, it is something to keep in mind here, guys, as this material will, again, not be as durable as a 409 or a 304 grade stainless. Now, that being said, MBRP is still going to throw a 3-year warranty at the Installer Series, which I feel is pretty solid. Now, as far as your components are concerned, well, again, this is a 3-inch mandrel bent system here, guys, from tip to tip, leading into, again, your resonator. There is a small little step down for the resonator itself, but that doesn't concern the flow here. Your main flow or path is all 3-inch, and that is going to exit and enter out of the signature MBRP muffler. It does split off into the twin 3-inch tailpipes that exit right in front of that rear passenger tire with the twin 4-inch embossed stainless tips. Now, this system does include all of the hardware, clamps, all that good stuff needed to get everything in place. Speaking of which, now we want to show you just what it takes to get the installer system on your 5.3 truck at home, and to do so, feel free to check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools you'll need for this installation include an impact gun, an electric ratchet, or a breaker bar and ratchets, an 8mm hex head socket, 13 and 15mm deep sockets, short and long extensions, 13 and 15mm wrenches, an exhaust hanger removal tool, as well as jack stands or pull jacks. How's it going, guys? Today I have an MBRP exhaust to put on for you. We previously uninstalled the factory exhaust, so I'm going to take you to that clip first, then I'll be back with the install on our 19 Silverado.
First up at the uninstall here, of course, get your truck up in the air and properly supported either on jack stands or on a lift like we have it here. I have pole jacks supporting it at the end and the middle of the exhaust, and when we start unbolting it, we have some support. Grab your 13mm socket. We're going to loosen up this bolt holding the clamp next to our catalytic converter. All right, next step, we're gonna grab our hanger removal tool and we're gonna pop out our hangers from our isolators. Now, it's a good idea to grab WD-40 or PB Blaster or something similar to lubricate both sides of this to make life easier. There's a couple of these we'll have to remove along the exhaust. A hanger removal tool is definitely gonna come in handy here. Now, on the side of our muffler closest to the rear of the vehicle, we have 2 hangers. And you can see I have my pole jack here because once these 2 come off, this is going to start to drop down a little bit and we want that support there. I'm going to grab my hanger tool and pop these guys off. The last hanger before the entire exhaust is free in one piece is right above our tailpipe. There you have it. Now we can grab a helping hand, or if you can do this yourself, you can pull the whole exhaust off in one piece.
I'm back to walk you through the install of the MBRP exhaust. We're starting here at the catalytic converters, and we're mainly going to be using 15mm sockets, but we also need a 13mm and various others. So let's get started. We're starting with the front pipe of the MBRP exhaust. This gets loosely attached to the catalytic converter pipe here, reusing the factory clamp. And we're also going to hang the front pipe using this hanger right here. If it's a little sticky, you can always use some lubrication, PB Blaster or whatnot to get it through, which I'm gonna do right now. Also, I have to mention, if you have a regular cab Silverado, this pipe will need to be cut to length. So just be aware of that. If you have a crew cab long bed, at this point you'd be using the extension pipe. We have a crew cab short bed, so we're moving right on to the muffler. Before you slide the muffler on, make sure you slide the 3-inch clamp on first. Then your single to dual muffler, and you can loosely tighten the clamp as well. You don't have to tighten it down all the way. But we're using a 15mm deep socket for these clamp nuts. Next, we're going to take the supplied hanger with the L bracket, with the long 3/8 bolt with a flat washer. Slide that through the hanger. And we're going to go up here to the frame and put the bolt through. Then we have to grab another 3/8 flat washer and lock washer, all of which is supplied with the exhaust kit. Slide that up into position and slide the bolt through. And then use the hex head nut that's supplied and loosely fit that on top. It's time for our front tailpipes. So we need 2 clamps. Slide those onto the muffler. Then I'm going to grab the top front tailpipe first. Slide that in to the muffler. And I'm going to loosely tighten this, just snug it up enough so that this kind of stays in position using our 15mm. At this point, we can hang the front tailpipe into the hanger that we just hung onto the frame. Again, not a bad idea to have some lube. I'm going to squirt this isolator real quick. At this point, I'm going to tighten down the clamps we've already installed, just to keep the muffler and exhaust in the position we have it hung right now. Now we're going to grab the supplied M10 or carriage bolt and the bolt leader. So we got the bolt through the spacer here, and what we have to do is we have to fish it through the frame in this oval hole right here, and then get the bolt to come through this hole so we can attach the washer, lock washer, and nut. Now that I have the bolt hanger and bolt carrier through the frame, I'm going to take this angled hanger, the other one that's supplied in the kit, and I'm actually going to slide it onto the hanger of the exhaust first here. And then I'm going to slide it into the bolt, slide the bolt through. Then we need a washer, a lock washer, and our nut to snug this into place. Now we're going to install the front tailpipe. Slide the clamp onto the muffler. Slide the front tailpipe in place. And this will kind of sit here nicely without having to tighten down the clamp right now. Just going to leave it as it is. Just one note, there is a bracket here that connects the front tailpipe to the rear tailpipe. So just make sure that when you do tighten this down, that bracket is underneath the rear tailpipe bracket. So the two brackets I was talking about earlier, one on the front tailpipe, one on the rear tailpipe, are right here. Now these have to line up. In order to do that, you have to change the angles of the tailpipe and the muffler as well. If they're not all angled properly, these won't line up and you won't be able to get the bolt through that I'm about to walk you through in this next step. Okay, so I'm just grabbing the tailpipes, and I did have to loosen stuff up a little bit in order to move it. But if you can see, you can spin the muffler here and then angle the tailpipes appropriately. Your brackets line up here. Then you're gonna grab the bolt, washer, lock washer, and nut. Slide everything through. And snug it down by hand. I do have everything loose now just so we can make adjustments. And once you get the tailpipes on, you'll be able to see how you want to angle everything for looks. Last couple steps we have to do. Slide our tips on. Adjust everything so everything fits properly. And I like the staggered look, so I'm going to leave them like that. We're going to use an 8mm hex head socket in order to tighten these down. And you might find it easier to tighten the back tip down if you have an extension. Once those are in place, at this point you can just line everything up, make sure it is where you like it aesthetically, make sure all your bolts are tightened, and you're good to go. At this point, it's a good idea to tighten this hanger down all the way. We're going to use a 15mm wrench to hold the nut at top, and a 15mm socket with extension to tighten the bolt from the bottom. All right, to tighten down this bracket, bolt, and nut here, we need a 13mm wrench and a 13mm deep socket. That's going to wrap up this review and install of the MBRP 3-inch installer series dual exhaust system with polished tips and side middle exit for your 19 and newer 5.3 liter Silverado. Thanks for watching, and for all things Silverado, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.